Fantastic morning of content so far, and that's going to continue now, where we're going to shift gears a little bit and start to put the creative and data folks to work a little bit. So to start that off, I'm pleased to introduce Toccara Baker, who is Adobe AdCloud's head of product marketing. Toccara has a long career in the advertising space, having worked agency side at Publicis, as well as spending some time in the startup world as well. So Toccara is a passionate student of film and has in fact authored a piece entitled How Fritz Lang's film Metropolis Predicted the World of Ad Tech. So who knew? Having listened to Cyborgs this morning, I think there's a bit of a theme going on here. But over to you, Toccara. Welcome.
Thank you. I didn't know that you could find that about me, but I guess Google. Cool. So my name's Toccara, and as was said before by Ollie, I head up product marketing for AdCloud in EMEA. I'm excited to talk to you guys about, this is a really long title, but the art and science of personalized ad experiences, but really it's about the sort of merging of creative data and technology. And in general, it really starts with the problem, or kind of what we're faced with today, which we know is that experiences matter more than ever. They're really important. This is what we talk to a lot of clients today about, is that customers really want a personalized experience, so how do we actually drive that through tech and through digital media and through advertising? And in general, we know that technology has really changed consumption habits. So there's been an explosion of screens, which has created massive amounts of fragmentation, which has created a lot of opportunities for data. This is great, and who knows what will come next, but it also has created a problem. We know that the funnel is no longer simple, right? You're not just moving consumers down from awareness to consideration to purchase, but they're really essentially choosing how they want to engage with the brand. And there are a lot of different touch points that are available to interact with the consumer. This creates a lot of opportunities to collect data and to understand the customer, but it does also create a lot of confusion. So how do you follow the customer? How do you actually essentially let the customer engage with your brand how they want to? What I like to talk about is the fact that when I go about my day-to-day, I'm not saying I'm on my desktop, I'm on my mobile, I'm now on Facebook, I'm essentially just kind of living my life. And so for a brand, it's really important to understand how you actually meet that. And we don't want this, right? We don't want to kind of bombard people with tons of different exposures, or even use essentially the legacy sort of media that really isn't engaging and really isn't exciting to a customer. And so for us at Adobe, we're really thinking through, instead of thinking through exposures and really looking at frequency, how do we help to provide technology that helps to drive an experience? And this is the core focus of what we do, and the core focus of AdCloud and where we sit within Adobe. I'm going to give you a bit of an intro into who we are really quickly for people who don't know. So we're an omni-channel DSP. You have the ability to essentially buy across multiple different formats and screens, and we provide the ability to drive full funnel types of executions. So really kind of starting from that awareness element all the way down to the conversion. And within our platform, we have access to various types of inventory. For us, it's a big deal that you can buy search, you can buy social, you can buy native, you can buy video, you can buy display, all through our platform in one place. And essentially kind of choose how you would like to even engage with different publishers. Additionally, the big piece about us is that we're an independent DSP and we're fully transparent, which we know is really, really important in today's landscape. We don't own any media, and we allow the brands and the agencies that work with us to understand exactly what's going on in the platform and have that full control within our platform. So let's go back to just the idea of what we're trying to achieve here and the overarching problem. Really, within Adobe and within AdCloud, we're talking about how brands leverage their tech assets. So we have marketing tech and we have advertising tech. How do we start to merge the two to capture a customer's attention or a prospect's attention, to build awareness, to really start at the top, and then to guide them along that funnel? And within Adobe, we have various solutions that really help to provide this. And AdCloud is essentially a solution that underpins it. So for clients, if you are an agency that have different Adobe products like Analytics or Audience Manager or Target, there's a way in which AdCloud really interacts with these different products to help to drive the ultimate customer experience from start to finish. If your clients don't have that, or if you don't have that, we also have different ways in which we as a DSP, going back to the independence and transparency piece, are really important. The other piece, and this is something that we know is key within advertising, is creative, right? So creative is really key, and it's a big piece of the overall message. So when we think through what makes good media today, there are all these various parts that are working together. Right, we have ensuring that you're reaching the right audience or finding the right audience. You have the activation element. Optimization and measurement is super important, right? But making sure we're looking at business results and business metrics that actually result back to or drive action for the business, so not just KPIs or media metrics. And then the other big piece is creative. But in general, we haven't seen a lot of solutions from a tech perspective that help to drive or help to improve the process of creative. I was sitting in I guess it's called the content room earlier today, and a lot of what people were talking about got me excited because they were really frustrated with the process of creative activation, how we start to make it faster, how we apply data. And this is really a focus of us at AdCloud and of Adobe's, and it really comes from our strength that we have in creative with the Adobe company. So AdCloud has focused its integrations in 3 key areas across those core elements that I described. So ensuring the ability to reach the right audience. We have our native integrations with Analytics and Audience Manager. Media, we have the DSP, which is Advertising Cloud, which I talked about really quickly. And then we have a product that we introduced back in March called Adobe Advertising Cloud Creative. And this is where we're really starting to solve some of the problems of marketers and creatives from a creative element. Okay, so you guys all came here for me to talk about creative, and I spent a lot of time kind of setting it up. But let me just go into what the creative product is, what it looks like, and why we actually even built it. So if we just think through kind of where creative has come from and where it is today, specifically when you start to look at performance creative, so this is really looking at digital elements, there's not really much of a change. I mean, you can see if we look at kind of what was done in 1994 versus what is done today, you know, there's photos, but essentially there's always that call to action. You want to drive, you know, someone to take an action. You have the product image. And in many ways, when you look at the 2 of these, there's not too much that has changed here in general. And we see 3 core problems that are happening in the creative space today as it relates to programmatic and as it relates to digital. The first one, there's a huge sort of emphasis that's happening on direct response creative. You know, in many ways, a lot of the creative that's being worked on from a digital perspective is focusing on how do we drive action. So it's DR in a lot of ways. The second is that there is a need to improve content velocity. And this will help overall to improve the creative experience. And from content velocity standpoint, it's really the ability to actually be able to create and drive turnkey pieces of creative at scale, and to do so using key signals that will actually matter, and to use elements that actually will drive success. And to actually achieve that, we need the creative and the marketer to work together a lot more closely. We can't have them sitting in silos or having essentially a handoff process. It needs to be more of a collaboration for this to be successful. And these were the first sort of areas that we've identified within creative that we are looking to address with the AdCloud Creative product. And I love using Mark Bouchard's quotes because he's got some good ones. And in general, you know, brands are thinking the same thing, right? So we have this quote here where he's saying that we need to really solve the problem of annoying ads. Consumers want to make sure that the advertising is relevant to them. And, you know, we have a lot of different sort of pulling ideas of what a consumer wants. And we also have different people involved in that process that might not necessarily be using the right signals to understand it. So it's really key that we start to pay attention to this. At the same time, 78% of consumers want personalized ads, so this is something that they're looking for, but only 28% actually think that they're tailored correctly. And then we have a couple of other lovely things happening. We have a rise in ad blocking. We've seen drops in consumer receptivity, a 5% drop in trust in media, and then also a decrease in customer loyalty. So we have a lot of these things that are happening at once in the space, which is really creating that need for a way to revamp the way in which creative is being developed, and really start to revamp the overall process to ensure that we are driving that personalization or giving customers what they want. So what prevents us from improving? Is it really that marketers are too focused on ROI, or is it that creatives are too enamored with their original idea? I don't know how many creative people are in the room, but when I worked at an agency, they would have some lovely ideas, but goodness gracious, like, it was kind of like, let's bring it down a little bit. But what's the problem here? And I think in general, it's a mix of both that we're seeing. And so if we talk about the three key players, we have the marketer, right? The marketer is really focused on results, relevance, speed, performance, efficiency, and sometimes if some marketers or advertisers had their way, you might get an ad that looks like this. Essentially, it has the URL that's really big. It has the offer that's there. It has click here that's kind of going all over the place, and this is what would be successful, maybe to drive action. And then you have the creative. They are really focused on design, focused on creativity, imagination, innovation. And if they had their way, then maybe their ad would look something like this, a little bit slicker, right? Has a really nice sort of get ahead, who knows what that means, but it has, a title on it, has a really slick image, and it has the URL that's a little bit smaller. And they're essentially kind of working together to find a handoff between these two pieces of creative. And I'm really focused on display and DR creative here because that's where we've started. And then you have the consumer at the same time who has kind of decided that they don't want to see ads, and they're really starting to show it, or the data is really starting to show that consumers really aren't receptive to a lot of the advertising that isn't personalized towards them. So how do we get these three to really work better together, or these two to work better together to help kind of create a more happy consumer or to provide a better experience for the customer? And what does that look like? It really starts with the process. So technology and programmatic really helps to streamline processes at the very beginning, giving control back to the advertiser. So we started to look at the creative life cycle and what's really happening there. So if you begin with the life cycle, we have the marketer, the marketing team that's sending the design team a brief. The design team then starts to work on assets and sends them back to the marketing team. The marketing team then provides feedback. The design team makes edits, and let's say this process happens over and over and over. I think we've all seen it. I've seen it. And essentially you kind of get to a point where you're like, all right, we just need to launch. We need to get this out the door, right? Because we actually have a campaign to run. Then you actually run the campaign, and maybe we see that some pieces of the creative aren't working. There are new edits and more edits that are happening based on the campaign. And essentially we're kind of creating, or it has created, this really frustrating experience for everyone involved, right? There's a back and forth process, and it can lead to bad ads. Ad quality could be compromised as we're starting to kind of hit or move towards our target launch date, and we just need to get stuff out the door. Multiple cycles is never a fun thing, and it does create a waste of time and budget for everyone that's involved, and overall not the best customer experience. We're not really allowing people to do what they're good at and spend time in areas where they can be the most effective. So thinking through this, we really wanted to streamline that with a creative management platform that helps this. So the marketing team still goes through and creates the brief and sends that brief to the creative team. The design team then is able to work on those assets and tools that they already regularly use and tools that they know, like Creative Cloud. But instead of that back and forth process, essentially what they do is they can actually push assets once they're done to be readily available in Advertising Cloud Creative, in our AdCut Creative product. From there, instead of having to go back and forth with things like a title or copy or a button or things of that nature, the creative team can actually highlight areas within the piece of creative that can be changed. And the marketer is then able to actually make those edits themselves directly within the AdCut Creative platform. And this really is a great thing because it now gives a marketer more control over things like offers or headlines or different pieces of the creative that are important. For the creative team or the designers, they can really focus on what they're good at and really where we want them to spend their time. Really focusing on building really engaging creative instead of doing things like changing copy or doing things like changing a button color, which we could honestly do ourselves. And in general, this then saves time and budget for everybody involved, right? We're kind of disintermediating that whole back and forth process, and by pushing those assets that are actually available and ready to be used to the marketer, and then giving that to the hands of the marketer to play around with copy, we are allowing people to save more time. And we're also eliminating some of the different tools that people are using along this process because you're pushing it directly through the Adobe products. So in general, now we have a marketer and a creative team that are all working together, and essentially, hopefully, we have a happier consumer, right? Forrester talks about something called the gratitude effect, where a customer now feels like they've received advertising that speaks to them, that they now are actually happy about, or that is more relevant to them. And so in many ways, this hopefully creates a better experience for the customer, but it's also creating a better experience for the other teams that are involved, that are dealing with all of these different pieces of the process. So what does it actually look like? I was gonna do a demo, but an actual live demo, but demos that I think when you present, they decide not to work. So just to be safe, I've got just an overview of what this product looks like. Starting with the creative team. So this essentially is a designer that is in Creative Cloud, and they have developed assets. They're working with a resort or a hotel, and they've created assets that are now ready to be shared. And essentially what they can do directly in the Creative Cloud, and this is in the assets section of Creative Cloud, they can push pretty easily and quickly and share those assets directly to the AdCut Creative product of the client that they're working with. From there, everything is in the hands of the marketer or whomever owns this product. What you're seeing here now is essentially the start of the AdCut Creative product, and we like to call what people are building within the product experiences, because we love experiences. So you can start to build or create an ad experience directly within the product. And in many ways, it kind of turns activation on its head a little bit. And I like to think of it as you're starting to build a choose your own adventure process for a customer, but in a really easy way and turnkey way. So you can start building, and let's say that this resort does have either Adobe Analytics or Audience Manager. We'll say that they have Audience Manager. So the product is integrated with those different products so that they can directly pull in the data that they already have into the system. So this client, Resort Life, they want to target everybody within their loyalty club. So they've chosen within their Adobe Audience section all of the different tiers of their loyalty club. And from there, we start to build out a tree. So now you see that we have segments for silver, pearl, gold, platinum, noir, loyalty club members. And let's say they really want to focus first on how they actually build out a journey for their gold members. So we've now decided that we're targeting gold members and we're using the data from Audience Manager. And then from there, they want to target all of their core members that are located in key cities. So you can select, and you can start to select different geos for different legs of your tree. And you can, so let's say for their gold members, they are targeting Austin, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and Palm Springs. I know we're in Europe, but this is what we have for the demo, so I apologize. But so they're targeting these different cities within the gold membership. And from there, they actually know that there are specific times of the week or days of the week that they want to target this audience. And so they've decided that they want to break it out into 2 different segments, which would be Monday through Thursday and Friday through Sunday. And they want to make sure that they target these people during these times of the day very differently with different messages. So to continue from here, you can then start to select your creative. This is where you get into the creative section. So if you look over here in the creative section, these are all of the standard creatives that have been pushed from the Creative Cloud Asset Manager. So the marketer or the advertiser that is using AdCut Creative now has full access to all of the approved creative elements that the creative team has pushed to assets. At the same time, what they can do is there is a section of AdCut Creative where they can actually change the titles, change images, and change buttons within the creative elements. For the images, they can also use other pre-approved creative elements or images that are available in assets. And they also have the ability to just play around with titles and do so and change it on their own. What we also have available for everyone to build is what we call chapters. So we talk a lot about how we want to move consumers down the funnel. And in many ways, we think through if someone at a frequency of 2 to 3 has seen our ad and maybe not taken an action, we want them to see another ad. Within our tool or AdCut Creative, what we really focus on are exposures or impressions. So you can start to then set up how these audiences that you've selected can engage with your different pieces of creative based upon their exposure. So chapter 1 is really kind of the general, maybe the spa creative. And then after an impression of 3, we want everyone who's seen it at an impression of 3 to then move to see chapter 2, which would be the golf piece of creative. And this is how you can start to move consumers down the funnel or send them different messages to see what's resonating and what's working better with the customer. And from there, you actually are able to then build out or push out tags that you can send directly to the AdCloud DSP, and it's available for activation within the DSP. And this process is really essentially kind of creating and streamlining time for the marketer. You're taking those creative elements or the creative pieces that the creative team has approved, and you now have that control within a product. You can then set up essentially what the story is, how consumers are going to see your ad and at what exposure. And it really actually is a really simple way to build it. This is instead of creating really complex placements in a DSP or kind of using or having to kind of lean on an activation team to set this up. You can essentially kind of build this out at the very beginning to ensure that customers are engaging with your creative and your ads in the correct way, and they're doing so with the data that you want to use. And that's really what AdCloud Creative is. And in many ways, it's not just about using targeted creative towards an audience, but it's thinking through how you start to use different pieces of your data to bring a message to a consumer or to take them through a journey. You can really start with just basic retargeting, or you can start to leverage and use dynamic creative optimization, which is available in the tool. You can pull in your different audiences if you have Audience Manager or analytics into the system. And then you can start to get, kind of Frankenstein-y with it, right? You can start to look at how you leverage DCO and with pricing and availability. And then also how you push in your CRM to drive more personalized experiences for the customer. But it's really starting to raise the bar and change the way in which creative personalization works, but putting more control back in the hands of the marketers and also giving creatives more time. And this is really the promise of AdCloud Creative. This is just the start of what we've been building, but in general, we really think of that as a great product because it allows the ability to drive higher personalization. It's providing the ability for more collaboration on the marketer side. It's speeding up content velocity, so there's a huge opportunity to do this at scale with many different pieces of creative. And also, we are really trying to drive ease of use within the UI. The other piece that I didn't include is that there also is a reporting section. So usually within platforms that you're leveraging or DSPs in AdCloud, there is a creative reporting section, but we do have a reporting section that's a little bit more granular that allows the marketer to fully start to understand how they can optimize against creative and feed that back into their creative teams so that they can build stronger creative assets in Creative Cloud. And this is really essentially what AdCut Creative is. We see it as the industry's first integrated advertising creative management platform, the first of its kind, given that we are directly integrating with Creative Cloud assets and also with AEM assets within Adobe products. And in general, the promise and what we focus on with Adobe, with our stack, is how do we drive an end-to-end advertising stack that's really helping to create or to streamline the processes across all of those core areas that I talked about in the beginning: activation, audiences, measurement and optimization, and creative, but also native syncs between our products that really are helping to drive the best experience for the customer. I like this slide. If you know what our Adobe products are, you can kind of get a sense of how it works, but I like to also use this next slide because it actually gives a true idea of how all of the products work together. So essentially, if you have Audience Manager, you are starting to segment out and push out your segments to the AdCloud DSP, which can then activate against these segments and help to provide forecasting against the various segments. Using Creative, you can then start to play around with messaging and ensure that you are giving the right journey or creative flow to the customer, and you have more time back to change things like headlines, color, and copy, where your creative team can then focus on those really great engaging elements. From there, we have what's called Adobe Target, which really focuses on on-site personalization, but it's really giving that payoff to the customer. I've seen one ad from your advertising, and now when I land on your site, I'm seeing the same sort of environment that I've engaged with in your advertising. I'm not kind of on your site and wondering, where am I? So giving that payoff there. And then finally, within analytics, using that data of the customer that now has been on the site to really find those high-value audiences and to then essentially do the process again, right? Making sure that we are giving the best journey to the customer. And in many ways, analytics focuses on on-site personalization, but you can always take it a step further if you have Audience Manager and start to bring in off-site information to really think through how you drive that overarching experience for the customer. And that really is how we're starting to raise the bar on ads and personalized ad experiences. Thank you.
So, do we have any questions in the audience? I think we have time for a couple of Adobe Creative. Maybe you just explained everything.
Yeah, maybe it was that good.
Sorry.
Thanks for the talk. It was really cool. So my name is Manuel. I'm working at IO AdBlock Plus, the biggest ad blocker on the market. So my question is, would be around the formats. So the ad formats themselves. So did you run any sort of study or service, anything that would help you measure whether the ad format is also something that it's actually a problem when it comes to approaching the user? Because we at IO, we run a number of surveys, eye tracking studies, a lot of stuff, just to find out what was the most annoying part about an ad. And it turned out to be the size in many cases, but also the fact that some very simple facts about an ad, for example, being animated or being not labeled or even being misleading, but that's, of course, in the worst cases. But the format itself and how the ad looks like actually has a lot to do with it. So you were specifying a number of standard sizes at the beginning of the presentation. I don't know if you made any findings on how or which are the most appealing formats for the users?
Yeah. So the product is started with display, just to keep it simple, and totally understand that formats are definitely a key piece. There's an opportunity to test and learn or A/B test in our platform to see what formats or sizes are or aren't working. Additionally, we actually have within the AdCloud DSP a research tool that's directly integrated where people can run surveys across their executions and understand what element a customer likes or doesn't like, or look at things like attitudinal metrics, so lifts in awareness, purchase intent, etc. Our thinking is that we want to make sure that all formats in general are available within the tool, and then we can use data to actually help customers identify where they should spend their money. So.
Perfect. Any other question? No? So what did you want to be when you were tiny, baby?
When I was tiny?
Yeah.
I wanted to be an Olympic gymnast.
Yeah, I can totally picture that.
Yeah, the Atlanta Olympics were like on, and the U.S. team was like amazing. So I really wanted to be a gymnast, but
what went wrong then?
I don't know. I found advertising.
Yeah, exactly. Well, fantastic. Advertising is way better than gymnastics. So with that, thank you.
Thank you.